So as of now, we have learned like what is IAM and what are users, what are groups, and what are roles and what are policies as well. So the thing is like in this particular session, we are going to understand like how we can set up the policies, how we can actually, make the policies for different users for different work. So we are going to learn the practical implementation of policies as well. So now let's start the session. So first, let's just understand like what is IAM policy. So IAM policies are just the document, or I can say set of rules which actually defines the permission for performing some kind of action on AWS resources. So let's suppose I'm creating a policy, and in that policy like I'm just making EC2 full access. Okay, so what I'm doing, like whenever I'm going to attach this policy with any user, so if in this policy I'm defining like EC2 full access, then that particular user is going to get the EC2 full access. Okay, so this is how we can actually understand about the policy. So policy is just a kind of a rule, or I can say a document in which we are having a set of permissions by which we can actually deciding like what kind of actions we are going to perform on a particular resource. So now we are having some components of a policy. So first, like we are having effects. So the effects are basically like allow or deny whether you are going to use that policy or not. Then we are having actions. So action is basically like what exactly, like at which service like you are going to I can say applies to your what I can say uh, your policy. Okay, and in your policy like which particular component or which particular resource you are going to add. And then we are having resources. So basically AWS resource that the policy affects means which on which particular resource this particular policy is going to affect. So now, and we are having something called conditions. Okay, so we are also going to define like under which specific condition this policy is going to work. So basically policy is just a document of having some set of permissions or rules, and we are having different resources on which we are going to use this policy, and we are like how we are going to use this policy, that we are going to learn practically in this particular session as well. Now we are having types of IAM policies. So generally we are having three types of policies. First one we are having as managed policies, then we are having inline policies, then we are having service control policies, and we call it as SCPs policy basically. So when we talk about the managed policies, so these policies AWS created, or customer managed policies that can be attached to multiple users group or roles. So these are kind of standard policy which we actually create as a user, or I can say as an admin, so that we can actually attach this policy to multiple users or group, or to different roles. And we are having inline policies. So these policies embedded directly into a single user group or role. Like if I talk about this, so let's suppose we are creating a user, and we are defining that if this user is going to change its like password. Okay, so this user will be having I can say automatically this user will be having the permission of changing, or I can say creating a password. So these comes under kind of inline policy. It is not exactly the inline policy, but you can actually, for understanding purpose, you can take this example. Then we are having service control policies. So it actually apply to AWS organization to control the maximum available permission. Organization we use these kind of policies. Okay, so these are the things which we are having. Now we are having best practices for setting permissions. So first we are having use managed policies, like start with AWS managed policies and customize when needed. So we can use AWS managed policies. We are having granular permissions, means we can define like which particular service we are going to use, and for which particular service this particular policy is going to affect. And also role based access control, or we can say RBAC. Okay, so use roles to separate duties and enforce least privilege. Okay, means it is going to use, like we are going to use roles to separate the duties and enforce least privileges. Okay, then we are having conditions statement. So add conditions to policies to restrict access based on IP address, time of day. So condition statements basically like in which particular condition that particular thing is going to work. Means you are going to restrict a particular IP, or I can say access, based on few particular conditions. So this is how you are going to use these kind of policies. But apart from standard policies, or we can say managed policies, everything is just not very much important. So you just have to understand like what exactly policies is, and how you are going to use these policies, okay, and how you are going to attach these policies to your user, to your group, or to your roles. Okay, so now let's just try to understand like how we can create policies practically, and how we can attach these policies to our users or to our group. So now let me take you to my AWS console, and let's understand this practically. So as you can see, like I'm in my IAM dashboard, and here we are having different options. Like in the access management, we are having user groups, users, roles, policies. So we have done like these three things, and now we are going to create policies. So now let's just click on policies, and it is saying a policy is an object in AWS that defines permission. Okay, means we are just creating our policy in which we will be having the permission, and we can directly connect connect this policy to our user, and whatever the permissions this particular policy is having, the user will be having those permissions automatically. So let's suppose we are creating a policy for interns. Okay, so the thing is, like whenever any interns will join our team, so these policy, like whenever we are going to connect this policy to that intern user, so whatever the permissions we have defined, that intern is going to have, because let's suppose every month we are getting lots of interns, like interns are joining our team. So like each and every month we are not going to manually create policies, or manually attach permissions to that particular intern user. So what we are going to do, for the first time, we will create one policy, and whenever any new intern will join, we are going to connect that policy to that intern user. Okay, so now let's just create the policy. So here you are getting option like create policy. Let's just click over here, and once you will click over create policy, so you don't have to do anything. Like you just have to choose a service. So let's suppose I'm choosing a service. So the service which I'm choosing is EC2, and it is saying actions allowed, like which particular action you are going to use. So you can use all EC2 actions. Okay. Okay, so we have selected this all EC2 action. So we don't have to worry about all these things, because whatever the things will be there, we are just using those actions. Okay, and apart from that, like we can choose any specific RN for these action, but we can choose like all. We don't need to do anything specifically. So now let's just click on all, and rest everything we are going to leave as it is. And now let's click on next. Okay, so now I'm going to name my policy as intern. Okay, so the name of my policy is intern, and I'm just giving like, okay, so apart from this, like we are having the name as intern, and description I have already given. This policy is for intern users, and as you can see, permission we are having EC2 full access, and rest everything we are going to leave as it is. And now let's just click on create policy. Okay, so we have just got the we have just created a policy. Now let's just search for our policy. So here you can search about our policy. Let's just type intern, the name of our policy, and as you can see, like this is the intern policy we are getting. So this is the customer managed policy, and this is the AWS managed policy. The policies which are already there in our AWS I can say console. So these policies are known as AWS managed, and which we are creating, these policies are customer managed. So I've already told you about these things. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create one user, and this particular intern policy I'm going to attach with my intern user. Okay, so now let's just go to our user. So there are two things, like we have already this user, we can attach this intern policy to this user, or we can create one new user. So now let me just create the one user. So I'm just giving the name as Tajwar Khan 2. Let's just click over here, and I'm just saying I want to create IAM user, and the password which I'm giving as a custom password. So I'm just giving a password as, okay. So the password which I gave, like this is the password which I'm actually using. So I can copy, like if I need this password anywhere, and next. So now we are on this particular I can say page, and here we are having permission, like permissions options, copy permissions, attach policies directly. So I'm going to use this attach policy directly. So now let's just click over here, like attach policies directly. And once you will choose like intern, so you can see the policy which we have created, we are getting over here, and we just have to click on this like intern policy, and we are just going to click on next. So what we are going to do, we are just attaching this particular policy which we have created just now to our new user, which is I'm creating as Tajwar Khan 2. Okay, so this is how you can actually do it. Okay, so now let me just click on next. Okay, so our user has been created, and this is the username, like like what we can do from now. So we have created one policy, and we have created this attached this policy to our newly created user, which is Tajwar Khan 2. So I hope you guys have understood like what is I can say policies, what are policies, and what exactly we are doing with the policies, and how we can attach these policies to our newly created users or groups. So for the users, I have already demonstrated you, and for the groups part, like you have to do it by your own. So this is a kind of assignment which I'm actually giving to you. So I hope guys you have understood these kind of concepts. So that's it for now. Let's meet in the next session. Till then, just take care of yourself. Thank you so much.